Good evening, everybody. Could we start with apologies for absence, please?
Chairman, we have apologies from Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Simmons, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest in matters before this? Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you, Leader. In respect of agenda item 6, although I've had no personal involvement, the organisation I work for has been involved in a project in the area of reference, and therefore I'm declaring a non-pecuniary interest and will leave the room while that matter is considered.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Can we approve the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting held on the 25th of July? Are they agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And just to confirm, as usual, that the items of business marked Part 1 will be considered in public, and those items of business marked Part 2 in private, the Part 2 items being those on the yellow papers. We have an Agenda B with us tonight, and the first item, item 5, is on that agenda. And you'll see why it's a separate agenda when you see the size of the report. This is the Heathrow expansion consultation. This report was circulated less than 5 working days before Cabinet makes any decision. And I have made a decision to submit this because we had to submit it by the 13th of September. So I'm bringing it to Cabinet after it's actually gone, and also under special urgency rules in the Council's Constitution. The Chairman of the Executive Scrutiny Committee kindly agreed that the decision wouldn't be called in as it was an urgent item and couldn't reasonably be deferred. Right, there are 3 recommendations on this report. 1, to note the contents of the report. 2, to endorse the Council's response dated the 13th of September, which is as attached. And thirdly, to reaffirm the Council's commitment, working either alone or in conjunction with partner authorities and others, to take all necessary actions, including pursuing appeals to the appropriate courts in relation to the current legal challenge and commencing further separate legal challenges, if appropriate, to oppose the Government's proposals to expand Heathrow Airport. And it confirms that the existing delegated authority to the Deputy Chief Executive and the Corporate Director of Resident Services and the Borough Solicitor to formally implement any actions directed by the Leader of the Council is to remain in place. The financial comments are on page 11, and I'll draw Cabinet's attention to these, and also for the benefit of Back Heathrow, which is the Heathrow Airport Limited puppet. Just to note that the Council has established a contingency fund for opposing expansion at Heathrow. This is reviewed annually as part of the MTFF process and currently stands at £897,000. That's £897,000, and Back Heathrow might want to publicise that, and we'll probably add a little more to it. Now, there is a recommendation in the month for budget monitoring, which will take 52k out of that, but it leaves us 842k for current and future legal challenges, and we remain committed to following that through for however long it takes. Now, as I said at Council a week or so back, the headline to take away from the consultation is that Heathrow Airport Limited has comprehensively failed to set out an expansion project that can even remotely be described as sustainable development. There is no clear strategy on surface access and therefore air quality. The noise issues are being entirely understated. A great swathe of information is still absent or not disclosed. There's a lack of honesty about the extent of the project, i.e. the hotel, storage, distribution and housing growth needs to accommodate more passengers and freight. There is a distinct lack of credibility about the programme. 4 years to construct the runway, including the diversion of several rivers and the M25, as well as to undertake operational testing, is borderline fantasy. And importantly, the levels of benefits are way down on what Parliament voted for as part of the ANPS. Simply put, the harm is much greater than expected and the benefits are far less. The consultation has required Heathrow Airport Limited to disclose for the first time a picture of the true harm of expanding Heathrow. However, it is noted that significant amounts of information are available but appear to be withheld, which suggests that the potential harm caused by Heathrow expansion will be even worse than feared. For example, the ANPS estimated that local benefits and they emphasise that there will be over 114,000 new local job opportunities to be created. This consultation significantly reduced this figure to 60,000 nationwide. This consultation, which is a pre-application stage of the Development Consent Order, the DCO process, should enable the Council to understand the scope of the project, the work undertaken to date and a preliminary understanding of the effects of the scheme. Unfortunately, the decision to withhold vital information has prevented this from being a truly meaningful exercise. However, it has not prevented HAL reaching conclusions on likely significant effects. The Council considers these conclusions to be premature and misconceived, and they demonstrate that HAL has already made determinations on impacts and effects without the necessary evidence being in place to substantiate them. Vital information is missing in relation to the following list, but it's not an exhaustive list: health impacts, areas of growth relied upon to justify expansion, with no indication of where they will be located or when or how they will come forward; contaminated land with valuable desktop studies available but not disclosed; flood and water management with survey data available but not disclosed to the Council even though it is the lead local flood authority; surface access with a decision taken not to disclose information to the Council as the Highways Authority; heritage with desktop surveys undertaken but not provided; ecology with vital supporting surveys withheld; economic growth with information presented in the last 2 weeks of the consultation time frame, thereby not informing the Council's assessment; noise with meaningful flight path data entirely absent; air quality with key aspects on modelling data not made available. The Council cannot understand why so much information, which is stated to have been collated, has not been made available. This would have made a far more credible consultation exercise. Quite frankly, HAL's approach is disingenuous, gives a distinct impression that he's nervous of being found out. In short, the purpose of this consultation, which is to front-load the DCO process, has been fundamentally undermined by the decision to withhold so much important information. I'd like to thank all the Council staff involved in preparing this comprehensive response, which, as I said at the beginning, has already been submitted. So, returning to the report and the recommendations, are there any comments on this? If not, are the recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Returning then to the main agenda. Cabinet Report 6, Conservation Area Appraisal Statement for Northwood Town Centre and Green Lane Conservation Area and the local list of buildings of architectural or historic importance. Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to thank officers first for putting this together and going through the consultation papers that came back after the 6-week public consultation had been completed. All responses were given a very careful consideration and taken on merits, and this report reflects that, and Cabinet are being asked to approve and amend the adopted Conservation Area Appraisal Statement for Northwood Town Centre, Green Lane Conservation Area, and to add the 14 locally listed buildings in Northwood to the Council's local list of buildings of architectural or historic importance following this consultation. This does show that this Council does want to protect areas where we have such importance. Northwood Town Centre and Green Lane Conservation Area in particular have come under increasing pressure from new developments, and we want to protect what's there. And the Council will continue doing this, not just in this area but across the borough. Therefore, the recommendations before Cabinet are: Recommendation 1, we consider the responses to draft appraisal for the Northwood Town Centre Green Lane Conservation Area as attached in Appendix 3 following the public consultation. Recommendation 2, formally adopts the Northwood Town Centre Green Lane Conservation Area appraisal as attached in Appendix 1. And Recommendation 3, approves the addition of 14 new entries to the local list of buildings of architectural or historic importance as attached in Appendix 2 following the positive response to the public consultation. And I have to say it was a very positive response, and the Council's very appreciative for the response that we got from the public, etc., during that consultation. Saying that, I move the 3 recommendations and hope that Cabinet do adopt this. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 7. Oh, sorry, yes, Councillor Cawthorne could come back in, yes. Okay, agenda item 7, consideration of setting a licence deficit budget in 2019-20 for 3 schools in the Borough. In the absence of Councillor Simmons, I will move the recommendations, and these are requests for licence deficits. Each school that's made a request has made a submission, and that's detailed in the report. The recommendations are that we approve the application for a licence deficit of 118k from Bishop Winnington Ingram CE Primary School. We approve the application for a licence deficit of 41k from Holy Trinity CE Primary School. And we approve the application for a licence deficit of 4,145k from Oakwood School. Now, the first 2 are fairly small amounts. The Oakwood School one relates to low pupil numbers over a number of years. However, following the completion of the new school building, along with the move to co-education and increases in the secondary school age pupil population, the pupil numbers have been increasing significantly from September 2017. And this is projected to continue. However, there is a little bit of an anomaly in the way pupil growth is funded, in that funding is only provided in the following year, the year of growth, so which seems a little bit daft. So that you can double the number of your pupils, but you won't get the funding in that first year. You have to wait till the second year. So there is a lapse when the school begins to pick up between when it takes the pupils and when it gets funded. So, having said that, are there any other comments or other recommendations agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 8, Transport for London Local Implementation Plan 3 2020-21 Annual Spending Submission. Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Leader. This report asks Cabinet to consider the content of our usual submission under the Local Implementation Plan 3 and our annual spending submission. There is no direct financial cost arising from this report because it's just preparing it to submit it. We do this on a regular basis, obviously, to secure these funds and use them across the borough. And the recommendations are: Recommendation 1 agrees the principles of the Council's Local Implementation Plan 3 2020-21 Annual Spending Submission to TfL set out in the report. Recommendation 2 delegates authority to the Deputy Chief Executive and Corporate Director of Resident Services in consultation with the Leader of the Council and the Cabinet Member for Planned Transportation Recycling to agree the final annual spending submission before submission to TfL. Recommendation 3 notes that the subsequent progression of any individual scheme or programme in the plan and funded by Transport for London budgets will also be subject to the Council's democratic capital release procedures, requiring the final sign-off by the Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Finance, Property and Business Services. So there's all the caveats in there that protects that money once we get it. This is just preparing the submission to get that money. So I move the recommendations.
Recommendations agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 9, Council Budget 2019-20, Revenue and Capital Month 4, Budget Monitoring. Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Leader. It is, as they say on the tin, this is July, month 4, and the underspend, I'm pleased to say, is increasing. So it's a good step forward. I should start also by adding that there are 14. There are 14 recommendations on the sheet. Bottom of page 133 and most of page 134, but there is an addendum sheet which hopefully everybody's got with a new 15th recommendation, so I would move all 15 of them. Now I know you will talk in detail about these, Leader, in due course, and I know there are 1 or 2 others that want to speak as well, but generally speaking it shows a positive step in the right direction. Capital is also projecting, as usual, an underspend, but undoubtedly this will result in a forward spending going forward into the following year through slippage and that sort of thing. And I think at that point I'll stop. I move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. And looking at those recommendations, then recommendation 1 is we note the budget position, as you say, at July 19 month 4 is outlined in table 1. That's shown on page 137, showing that we have anticipated balances at the year end of £33 million. Recommendation 2 to note the Treasury Management Update at July 19, Appendix F, page 173. The important sentence in there, as always, is there were no breaches of the prudential indicators or non-compliance with the Treasury Management Policy and Practices. Recommendation 3 to continue the delegated authority to myself and the Chief Executive to approve consultancy and agency assignments over 50k. The authorities for those between 25th of July and 26th of September are shown on page 175, Appendix G. Recommendation 4, accept an award of 48k from Transport for London in respect of Bridge Assessment and Strengthening Programme. This is for schemes at Yedding Lane and Trout Road bridges, and also for fees in relation to officer duties supporting the London Bridge Engineering Group. Recommendation 5, and I referred to this earlier when I was discussing the Heathrow consultation, approve the release of funding of 52k for the Heathrow from the Heathrow HS2 Contingency Earmark Reserve to support the activities of the Stop Heathrow Expansion Group. Recommendation 6, approve an uplift in existing charge levied for parking bay suspensions from £15 per bay to £31 per bay, which, together with recommendation 7, is approving new charges in relation to parking bay suspensions and cancellation fees or amendments. This is to bring them into line with what is charged in other authorities. Recommendation 8 and 9, these are to approve the rents to be charged in our new HRA build at Parkview Court. And if you look at page 171, the important thing about the Parkview Court properties and the rent is they are affordable rents. And paragraphs 7 and 8 gives the detail of how we've calculated these. The total gross market rent, inclusive of service charges, is valued at £302.61 per week for a one-bedroom property. As the affordable rent maximum charge is 80%, that makes the affordable rent to £42.09. But in order to provide a margin of safety in case market rents reduce, we intend to charge not 80% but 72.5%. So the rents will be £219.39, not £242. And similarly with the two-bedroom properties, market rent £362, affordable rent £290. We will charge £263 in case the market rents were to drop. And I think that's a reasonable position to be in. We're not going to just say it's 80% end of. We'll give a degree of leeway in there. Recommendation 10, approve acceptance of gift funding in relation to a planning performance agreement. That relates to Unit 7B, Haysbridge Retail Park, and the gift is 20k. Recommendation 11, to approve an allocation of 26,800 from unallocated priority growth fund to fund improvements to South Ruislip Station Railway Bridge, or bridges, there's two of them. And recommendation 12, approve the grant payment of £69,660 to Addictions Recovery Community Hillingdon, Arch, and associated capital release in respect to the Public Health England Alcohol Capital Fund Partnership bid. Recommendation 13, now this follows on from Council on 12th of September, when we resolved that we would offer, again, to purchase Uxbridge Police Station for £5 million to enable the continued use by local officers made in their 2018-19 budget that this should be remade to the Mayor of London. It has been remade, and as I said at the council meeting, or as Councillor Mills said at the council meeting, there is an underspend in the current year. If the Mayor were to act quickly, if he doesn't act quickly, then we'd just include it in the following year's budget. The recommendation 14 is to ratify 2 contract special urgency decisions. They are shown in Appendix H, page 179, but they relate to managed service for the supply and distribution of materials for the in-house repairs team and appointment of a contractor for the refurbishment of our libraries. And recommendation 15, as Councillor Bianco referred to, this is the addendum sheet item, that the Cabinet agrees to award the 2019-20 Community Safety Grant of £81,000 to the Metropolitan Police Services for activities aligned to local community safety priorities for Hillingdon residents. Now, an awful lot of recommendations, but broadly, as per usual, we're in a sound position financially, and it is good to be able to do a lot of the things that we are doing within these recommendations. Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to pick up on the 2 specific recommendations that relate to the policing. Recommendation 15, new one. This £81,000 is not to be confused with the support which we give already in terms of funding officers as part of the partnership teams that we have, both north of the A40 and south of the A40. But this money is to assist them, and indeed our local ward officers at a local policing level, to actually carry out functions over and above their normal duties in terms of either overtime or with equipment to enable successful operations to take place. And this is, in the past, money has been used to help with capturing a whole range of unsavoury people dealing with particular violence, knife and burglaries in particular. And we've made it clear to the police that we wish that kind of focusing to continue. Because, of course, Hillingdon is now part of a wider police unit, we have made it clear to them that this 81,000 is only going to be released upon them producing evidence, that it's invoices, that actually shows that it was in connection with policing activities within Hillingdon and not elsewhere. And indeed, the Chief Executive and I have a meeting with some very senior new officers to the Hillingdon and to the Western Command Unit coming up shortly, where we will take the opportunity of reinforcing that message and helping them to fully understand the Hillingdon way of working in cooperation. But that is a success. What is worrying, and I'm sure you're aware, Leader, is that in terms of the actual tasking teams, where we currently pay a considerable sum of money, and under the contract that we have with the MOPAC, they agree to provide some support officers as well. They have put us on notice that is at risk from next March, and as things stand at the moment, there is the likelihood that the Mayor of London and MOPAC will reduce policing within the borough by between 7 and 8 officers off our tasking team. But they have said that there will be negotiations, and I'm hoping, of course, that with the announcement from the current government that there will be more funding, that the Mayor of London takes the opportunity to rethink that particular proposal before we get to next April. Which leads me on to recommendation 13, where we're also asking him to have a rethink, to take up the offer of purchasing Uxbridge Police Station. Again, as I think everyone now knows, we're in the ludicrous situation where it's officially closed, but there are all the police going in and working there at the back, and the building is still operational. And indeed, the local residents have got wind of the fact that the improvements to the Hayes Police Station, which was all part of the Mayor's cunning plan, if I may put it like that, is now at best on hold, and at worst is now not going to happen. So I think our motion at Council is timely, insofar as that if it is true that the Hayes Police Station is not going to be refurbished and made suitable as the main police station for the borough, then the sooner the Mayor welcomes your cheque that you're willing to sign and allow Uxbridge to be fully operational back and front, it will be better for everyone as soon as possible. And also there is some misinformation which I have picked up, so I think we need to put the record straight. There is misinformation, I imagine, from those who may not be of the same persuasion as your good self and me, Leader, who are saying that, of course, that when Boris Johnson was Mayor of London, it was his proposal to close Uxbridge. There is no truth in that, of course. It was never the case. The only proposal that has come forward to close Uxbridge Police Station is from the existing Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan.
Thank you. I've no doubt that, well, let's see, when the election comes, we were talking about it before Cabinet, whether it's October, January or whatever, this will be a major issue in Uxbridge. There will be those who support it and those who don't. I've had an awful lot of residents contact me and said how delighted they are that the council are taking this initiative, and we will just await now the response from the Mayor. I'll wait for 4 weeks and then send in a reminder to see if we're getting anywhere with that. Are there any other comments? If not, recommendations 1 to 15, are they agreed? Thank you.